Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm really glad you found us today. So let's talk about something that affects anywhere, from 1/3 to half of the population, depending on which studies you look at, introversion. And before you think this is going to be another one of those introverts are misunderstood angels, pieces or extroverts rule the world rants, let me stop you right there. Today, we're going to have an honest, balanced conversation about what it's actually like to be an introvert, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Because here's the thing, being an introvert isn't a superpower, and it's not a disability. It's just a different way of being wired. And like anything else, it comes with advantages and disadvantages. The key is understanding both sides, so you can work with your nature instead of against it. Whether you're an introvert yourself, you love an introvert, you work with introverts, or you're just curious about how different personality types navigate the world, this episode is for you. We're going to dig into the science, bust some myths, share real talk about the challenges, and explore how introverts can thrive in a world that often feels designed for extroverts. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's dive into the reality of introversion. Part 1. What is introversion really? Before we get into advantages and disadvantages, we need to clear up what introversion actually is, because there's a ton of misinformation out there. First, let's talk about what introversion is not. It's not shyness. Shyness is about fear of social judgment. You can be a shy extrovert who wants to be around people but feels anxious about it. And you can be a confident introvert who has no problem with social situations, but just needs time alone to recharge. Introversion is also not the same as social anxiety, though they can overlap. Social anxiety is a clinical condition involving intense fear of social situations. Introversion is just a preference for how you gain and spend energy. And introversion doesn't mean you hate people or that you're antisocial. Most introverts have rich social lives. They just approach socializing differently than extroverts do. So what is introversion? At its core, introversion is about where you get your energy. Introverts recharge through solitude and quiet time. Extroverts recharge through social interaction and external stimulation. That's really the fundamental difference. The psychologist Carl Jung, who first popularized these terms, described it like this: introverts direct their energy inward toward thoughts, feelings, and reflections. Extroverts direct their energy outward toward people, activities, and the external world. There's also some fascinating neuroscience behind this. Research suggests that introverts and extroverts have different levels of cortical arousal. Introverts have naturally higher levels of internal stimulation, which means they need less external stimulation to feel satisfied. Extroverts have lower baseline arousal, so they seek out external stimulation to feel energized and engaged. There's also evidence that introverts and extroverts process dopamine differently. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with reward and pleasure. Extroverts seem to get a bigger dopamine hit from social interaction and novelty, which drives them to seek it out. Introverts are more sensitive to dopamine, so they can actually feel overstimulated by too much external activity. Now here's something important. Introversion exists on a spectrum. Very few people are complete introverts or complete extroverts. Most people fall somewhere in the middle, what's called being an ambivert. You might lean introverted but enjoy social situations in the right context. Or you might be deeply introverted and need a lot of alone time to function well. Also, context matters. You might be introverted in your personal life, but more extroverted at work. or vice versa. You might be introverted with strangers, but totally comfortable and animated with close friends. And introversion can look different in different people. Some introverts are quiet and reserved. Others are quite outgoing and talkative. They just need recovery time afterward. Some love one-on-one conversations but hate group settings. Others are fine in groups but terrible at small talk. The key is understanding your own patterns and needs. Part 2: The advantages of being an introvert. All right, let's start with the good stuff. What are the actual advantages of being wired as an introvert? Deep thinking and reflection. First up, introverts tend to be deep thinkers. Because they spend more time in their inner world, they often develop rich internal lives. They're the people who think before they speak, who process information thoroughly before responding, who consider multiple angles of a situation. This makes introverts excellent at analysis, problem solving, and strategic thinking. They're not just reacting to whatever's happening on the surface. They're thinking about underlying patterns, long-term consequences, and deeper meanings. In meetings, while extroverts might be firing off ideas rapid fire, introverts are often the ones who come back later with the thoughtful insight that everyone missed. They're synthesizing information, connecting dots, and seeing things from angles others overlook. Meaningful relationships. Introverts often build incredibly deep, meaningful relationships. Instead of having hundreds of casual acquaintances, they tend to invest deeply in a smaller circle of close friends, and these relationships often run very deep. Introverts are often excellent listeners. They're present in conversations. They remember details. They ask thoughtful questions. They create space for others to be heard and understood. If you have an introvert in your life who considers you a close friend, you've probably experienced this. They really see you and know you in a way that feels rare. They're also often very loyal. Because introverts are selective about their relationships and invest so much energy in them, they tend to be the friends who stick around through thick and thin. Observation and awareness. Introverts are often keen observers. Because they're not always at the center of the action, they're watching and noticing things. They pick up on social dynamics, body language, subtle shifts in mood or energy. They're the ones who notice when something's off with you, even when you're trying to hide it. This observational skill makes introverts excellent at reading people and situations. They notice details others miss. This can be invaluable in everything from understanding team dynamics at work to navigating complex social situations to creative pursuits, like writing or art. Independence and self-sufficiency. Introverts are often comfortable being alone, which translates into strong independence. They don't need constant companionship or external validation to feel okay. They can entertain themselves, enjoy their own company, and pursue interests solo. This makes them resilient in situations where they might not have a lot of social support. They're often self-starters who can work independently without needing constant collaboration or feedback. They can sit with themselves without getting uncomfortable, which is actually a pretty powerful skill. Creativity and innovation. There's a reason so many artists, writers, scientists, and innovators throughout history have been introverts. Creativity often requires solitude, deep focus, and time to let ideas percolate. Introverts are naturally drawn to this kind of work. They're comfortable sitting with a problem or idea for extended periods, turning it over in their minds, exploring different possibilities. They can sustain deep focus without getting bored or needing external stimulation. This is the kind of thinking that leads to breakthroughs and innovations. Calm in crisis. Introverts often remain calm in chaotic situations. While everyone else is reacting emotionally and frantically, introverts tend to step back, assess the situation, and think through responses carefully. They're not as easily swept up in group panic or excitement. This doesn't mean they don't feel emotions. They absolutely do. But they process them internally rather than expressing them immediately. In a crisis, this can be incredibly valuable. Strong written communication. Many introverts excel at written communication. Give them time to compose their thoughts, and they can be incredibly articulate and persuasive. They often prefer email or text to phone calls because it gives them time to think through their response. In our increasingly digital world, this is actually a huge advantage. So much communication happens in writing now, emails, messages, reports, proposals. Introverts who've honed their written communication skills can be incredibly effective. Thoughtful decision-making. Introverts typically don't make impulsive decisions. They want time to think things through, research options, and consider consequences. While this can sometimes slow them down, it also means they're less likely to make reckless choices they'll regret. They're the ones doing their homework before making a big purchase, thinking through career moves carefully, and considering how decisions will affect not just themselves but others around them. Authenticity. Because introverts spend so much time in self-reflection, they often develop a strong sense of who they are and what matters to them. They're less likely to perform or put on a show for others. What you see is generally what you get. This authenticity is magnetic. People trust introverts because they're genuine. They're not trying to be the life of the party or win popularity contests. They're just being themselves. Part 3. The disadvantages and challenges. Now let's talk about the flip side, because it's not all sunshine and deep conversations. Being an introvert comes with real challenges, especially in cultures and environments that favor extroversion. The energy equation. The biggest challenge for introverts is managing their energy in a world that demands a lot of social interaction, work meetings, networking events, social gatherings, family functions. All of these drain introverts' batteries while charging up extroverts. And here's the thing. You can't just opt out of all social interaction. You need to work, maintain relationships, participate in family events. But if you're an introvert, you're constantly having to budget your energy in ways extroverts don't have to think about. This can lead to what I call social fatigue, that exhausted, drained feeling after too much interaction. And if you don't get enough recovery time, you can end up feeling burnt out, irritable, and depleted, being misunderstood. Introverts are constantly misunderstood. People think you're stuck up when you're just quiet. They think you're mad when you're just thinking. They think you're not interested when you're just taking time to process. Your need for alone time gets interpreted as rejection. Your preference for deep conversation over small talk gets labeled as too intense. Your thoughtful pauses in conversation get filled by someone else jumping in. And the constant explanations get exhausting. No, I'm not mad, I'm just tired. I'm not antisocial, I just need to recharge. I do like you, I just can't hang out 3 nights in a row. Professional disadvantages. Let's be real. The professional world often favors extroverts. Open office plans, constant meetings, brainstorming sessions, networking requirements. The emphasis on cultural fit and being a team player All of this can be challenging for introverts. The loudest voice in the room often gets heard, even if it's not the best idea. Promotions sometimes go to the most visible people, not necessarily the most competent. Executive presence often gets defined in extroverted terms, commanding the room, thinking on your feet, being charismatic. Introverts who prefer to think before speaking can get overlooked in meetings. Those who prefer email to phone calls might be seen as difficult to work with. Those who need quiet time to do their best work might struggle in open offices with constant interruptions, social expectations, and FOMO. There's constant pressure to be more social, more outgoing, more available. Friends get hurt when you turn down invitations. Family members think something's wrong if you want to skip the party. Colleagues think you're not a team player if you don't want to go to happy hour. And there's FOMO, fear of missing out. You see everyone's social media posts from events and gatherings, and part of you wonders if you should be out there doing all that too. Even though you know you'd be miserable at half those things, there's still that nagging feeling that maybe you're missing something. Difficulty being heard. In group settings, introverts often struggle to get their voice heard. By the time they've thought through what they want to say, the conversation has moved on. When they try to speak up, they get talked over by more assertive extroverts. In cultures that value quick thinking and verbal sparring, introverts' need for processing time can be a disadvantage. They might have brilliant insights, but they need time to formulate them. And fast-paced environments don't always allow for that. Networking challenges. Networking, which is crucial for career advancement and business success, is often structured in ways that favor extroverts. Large events, small talk, quick connections, selling yourself to strangers. This is exhausting for introverts. And the traditional advice about networking, just put yourself out there, work the room, collect as many cards as possible, feels completely wrong to introverts. They'd rather have 3 meaningful conversations than 30 superficial ones. But that's not always how networking events are set up. Mismatched relationships. When introverts are in relationships with extroverts, there can be real challenges. The introvert needs quiet time at home. The extrovert wants to go out. The introvert wants a quiet dinner. The extrovert wants to invite friends over. The introvert is ready to leave the party after an hour. The extrovert is just getting started. Neither person is wrong, but these different needs can create friction. If they're not communicated, and compromises aren't reached. The fix yourself message. Introverts constantly get the message that they need to change. Come out of your shell. Be more outgoing. You need to speak up more. It's rare for extroverts to be told, you need to be quieter, or you should spend more time alone. This creates a sense that introversion is something to overcome rather than a valid way of being. It can lead to introverts constantly trying to be something they're not, which is exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. Overstimulation. Introverts can get overwhelmed by too much sensory input, loud environments, crowds, constant activity. What feels exciting and energizing to an extrovert can feel chaotic and draining to an introvert. And in our modern world, there's constant stimulation, notifications, emails, news, social media, advertisements. Finding quiet and calm requires active effort in a way it didn't used to. Difficulty with spontaneity. Introverts often struggle with last-minute plans or unexpected social demands. They need time to mentally prepare for social interaction. When someone says, "Want to hang out tonight?" the introvert might say no, not because they don't like the person, but because they've already allocated their energy for the day and don't have reserves for impromptu socializing. This can come across as inflexible or unfriendly, even though it's just about energy management. Part 4, Thriving as an Introvert. So how do you work with your introversion instead of against it? How do you get the advantages while managing the challenges? Know yourself and your limits. The first step is really understanding your own patterns and needs. How much social time can you handle before you need to recharge? What kinds of social situations drain you most? Which ones are easier? How much alone time do you need to feel balanced? Start paying attention to your energy levels. Notice what depletes you and what restores you. This isn't about judgment. It's just information. When you know your patterns, you can plan accordingly. Set boundaries without guilt. This is huge. You don't have to apologize for your needs. You're allowed to say no to invitations. You're allowed to leave parties early. You're allowed to need time alone. You're allowed to prefer quiet dinners over loud bars. Practice saying no without over-explaining. "Thanks for the invitation, but I can't make it," is a complete sentence. You don't owe everyone a detailed explanation of your introversion and energy management. And when you do say yes to something, you can set parameters. "I'd love to come, but I'll probably need to leave around 9. I can do lunch, but I have a busy afternoon, so let's keep it to an hour." This helps you participate without completely draining yourself. Find your people. Not all introverts are the same, and not all extroverts are exhausting. Find the people who get you, who respect your needs, who you can be comfortable with. Often this means other introverts, but not always. Some extroverts are perfectly happy with quieter, deeper friendships. Quality over quantity applies to relationships. It's okay to have a small circle. It's okay to invest deeply in a few people, rather than spreading yourself thin trying to maintain dozens of casual friendships. Leverage your strengths. Figure out how to use your introverted strengths professionally. Can you position yourself as the thoughtful strategist? The person who does thorough research and analysis? The one who builds deep client relationships rather than working a room? Can you use written communication to your advantage? Can you prepare for meetings in advance so you have your thoughts ready? Can you find roles or industries that value the kind of work? Introverts excel at research, writing, design, technical work, one-on-one counseling. Prepare for social situations. One advantage introverts have is that they can prepare. If you know you have a networking event, you can mentally rehearse some conversation starters. You can research who'll be there. You can plan your exit strategy. If you have a big presentation, you can practice until you're confident. If you have a difficult conversation coming up, you can think through what you want to say. Use your natural tendency to think ahead to set yourself up for success. Create recovery rituals. Build in time to recharge after social events. If you know you have a big weekend of social obligations, plan for Monday to be low-key. If you have back-to-back meetings all day, block off your lunch hour for quiet time. Figure out what recharges you. Reading, walking, being in nature, creative hobbies, exercise, meditation, and make time for those things regularly. This isn't selfish. It's maintenance. Communicate your needs with the people closest to you, partners, family, close friends. Be clear about your introversion and what you need. Help them understand that when you need alone time, it's not about them. that you process differently and might need time before responding to big questions or decisions. Most people are willing to work with your needs once they understand them. The problems come when you're not communicating, and they're left to interpret your behavior, which often leads to misunderstanding. Challenge yourself, but don't try to be someone else. There's a difference between stretching yourself and trying to fundamentally change who you are. It's good to push your comfort zone sometimes, to go to that event even though you're nervous, to speak up in that meeting, to try that new social situation. But you're not trying to become an extrovert. You're just expanding your range within your introverted nature. Think of it like building strength. You're training, not transforming. Find introvert-friendly structures. Look for ways to engage that feel more natural. One-on-one coffee dates instead of group parties. Online communities instead of in-person networking. Email or messaging instead of phone calls when possible. For networking, try connecting with people one-on-one after events rather than working the room. Or look for smaller, more intimate professional groups rather than massive conferences. Embrace technology. Technology can be an introvert's best friend. You can maintain relationships through text and email. You can do research online before social situations. You can work remotely if that's an option. You can shop online to avoid crowds. Use technology strategically to make your life easier and more aligned with your nature. Part 5. For the extroverts listening. If you're an extrovert listening to this, or if you have introverts in your life, here's what you need to know. It's not about you. When an introvert needs alone time or turns down an invitation, it's not personal. It's not that they don't like you or don't value your friendship. It's just about energy management. Try not to take it personally. Different doesn't mean wrong. Introversion isn't something that needs to be fixed. Your introverted friend or partner or colleague isn't broken or antisocial or stuck up. They just operate differently than you do, and that's okay. Respect their boundaries. If an introvert says they need to leave or they need some time alone, respect that. Don't push them to stay at the party just a little longer or guilt them about needing space. That just creates resentment. Give them processing time. If you need an answer to something important, give introverts time to think. Don't expect instant responses to big questions. They're not being difficult. They genuinely need time to process. Value their contributions. In meetings or group settings, create space for introverts to contribute. Don't let the loudest voices dominate. Ask directly for input from quieter team members. Give people the option to submit ideas in writing if they prefer. Quality time counts. With introverts, quality matters more than quantity. A couple hours of really being present together might mean more than a whole weekend of constant activity. Pay attention to the depth of connection, not just the amount of time spent together. Meet them halfway. If you're in a relationship with an introvert, find compromises. Maybe you go to the party for a couple hours and leave together. Maybe you have friends over sometimes, but also have quiet nights at home. Maybe you go out with your friends sometimes while they recharge at home. Both people's needs matter. And with good communication and creativity, you can usually find ways to honor both. All right, friends, let's bring this home. Introversion isn't better or worse than extroversion. It's just different. Both come with advantages and challenges. The key is understanding yourself, working with your nature instead of against it, and building a life that honors who you actually are rather than who you think you should be if you're an introvert. I hope this episode gave you some language for your experience and some strategies for navigating a world that isn't always designed with you in mind. You're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're not wrong. You're just wired differently, and that's completely okay. If you're not an introvert but you love someone who is, I hope this gave you some insight into their world. A little understanding and flexibility can go a long way. And remember, the world needs both introverts and extroverts. We need the deep thinkers and the energizers. We need the observers and the action takers. We need the listeners and the speakers. We need different perspectives and different ways of engaging with the world. So wherever you fall on the spectrum, own it. Work with it. And build a life that lets you show up as your best, most authentic self. Thanks so much for spending this time with me today. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And until next time, take care of yourselves.